I'm just going to let her introduce herself. She's awesome. So.
My name is JenniferHartnett-Henderson, and I'm here to talk to you about Sketchnotes. Sketchnotes are a great way to communicate complex ideas very quickly, and as documentarians, you guys have a lot of complex ideas to communicate. So let me go ahead and get started. What is a sketchnote? A guy named Mike Rohde recently came out with a book called Sketchnotes, and he popularized the idea for the rest of us with this definition. Sketchnotes are rich visual notes, and they have a variety of elements in them, from handwritten typography to shapes and other visual elements like squares, circles, lines, and dots. So his definition gives us a great idea of what sketchnotes are. And if you've been watching Twitter, periodically I've been posting sketchnotes from the talks, one from Matthew Butterick's talk on typography. And I did go home after his talk and examine the font in my slides and make sure that it wasn't too archaic and that it was consistent with the message I was trying to communicate. So why am I here talking to you about sketchnotes? It seems kind of an odd thing, I think. In my day job, I am a strategist at a high-tech company, and I'm also an artist, and my chosen art form is photography. I've had a tremendously difficult time getting these two things to work together in my life. Either I have not had a job or I have decided not to do any art, and neither one of those has been very beneficial. And to work with Danya's excellent poetic inspiration, my dilemma was, how do I bring more of the artistic side that's so important to me and to my identity into my work life? And about the same time, I discovered this whole concept of sketchnotes. So it's a way for me to bring the part of me that's outside of work into work in a way that's beneficial to the folks I work with. So that was a very exciting way to actually be whole, you know, in my job. So that's why I'm here talking about sketchnotes. And what happened was I began sketching in the back of rooms and meetings on WebEx or teleconferences, and people began looking over my shoulder, and then they began asking for copies of my notes. And then most recently, I was asked to go to a senior leadership offsite and do sketchnotes for the entire offsite, which they then subsequently published in a document. A meeting in the box that went out to all the folks who weren't there because their title wasn't high enough, but that's how they got the information from the offsite. So what I found is that before 1 + 1 was equaling less than 2, only 1, my strategy career and my arts career plus sketchnotes was actually equaling much more. So that's the idea I wanted to share with you, is that maybe sketchnotes can work with what you're doing and make it much more for other people. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is, why does this work? And a brilliant Canadian person, anybody from, I know there's at least one person from Canada in here, yay, go Canada, discovered the fact that if you coded information in both words and in pictures, people retained the information better, they learned faster. So that's called dual coding theory. And that's what Sketchnotes is based on. As you're drawing the concepts that you're hearing, you're encoding it both with words as well as with pictures. So dual coding theory is the reason that Sketchnotes actually works. And it works because that's the way a human mind works. You've got several channels to code on, so why not use them? Now, just in case you had a traumatic art experience in school, or just in case you're afraid to draw, or just in case you're embarrassed about what that might look like, don't worry about it. Sketchnotes are not art. They are just notes. They're sketches in service of something else, in service of a program, in service of a department that you're trying to help. They're not art, so you don't have to worry about, I'm the next Van Gogh, or I am the next Gauguin. They're just notes. So how many of you in here can draw a square? Good, good. Circle? Good. Line? Triangle? I think you get the picture. If you can draw those things, basically, then you can sketchnote. That's all it takes, is combining those shapes into something that makes some sense. So my challenge to you for the rest of this talk and for the rest of today is to take a pen and a piece of paper or whatever tools you have handy and try to sketchnote the concepts that you hear. You'll find them more memorable. And in fact, one of the examples I wanted to give is I used to take copious notes in English across more than 3 alphabets of the page. But I never did go back and look at them. And I also, when I went back and looked at them, I couldn't really remember what the context was. And so you may be worried that, well, if I take a sketch note, I won't remember everything anyway. But one of the things about sketchnotes is what you're doing is you're taking down what hits you, what lands on you, what's important to you. And that's a really different way of looking at content rather than trying to get all of it down. So I'm going to show you an example of an old way of, my previous way of describing problems or dilemmas or things that I was trying to work on. So, and I can't share any work examples, of course, because they're company confidential. So these are all examples, personal examples. So I told you I was a photographer. How many of you have ever tried to find a photograph somewhere in your, yes, so we're in harmony here. I was trying to find a photograph, and I had to go through, I've been a photographer for a long time, I had to go through 10 years worth of film negatives in 6 different negative sizes, stored in different negative binders. I also had to go through 8 years of digital negatives from 4 different cameras, each with its own file naming convention, DSC dot something, and then 2 years of mobile photography with photos on various devices, as well as in various cloud services, to find my photo. Now, I don't know about you, but there's lots of numbers. It's very measurable. That's kind of cool. But a picture is much better. So this picture is called 20 years of photos. That's what's up at the top. On the left-hand column, what you see is a picture of my negative binder situation with a nice little can of Kodak film up there at the top. And then in the middle column, what you see is the digital camera era, where I have photos on cameras on a PC. Yes, I did use a PC. I'm Mac now. It's okay. And then on an external drive. And then on the right-hand column, you see up at the top the various mobile Dropbox, Box, Flickr, Facebook, etc. And then the various iDevices, a Mac. Yes, it's okay now. And then a G drive. So in Danya's world, this would be describing what problem it is I am trying to solve. This is the dilemma. This is the thing. How can I find this photo? Or how can I make my life, how can I make it easier for me to find this photo? So here is a sketch note of the solution. Now, I had to explain the solution to myself before I could actually go do it. So the solution is to take all the pictures off of all those devices and put them on my Mac. And thank God that Lion will read a PC. It'll read files from a PC, so you can just take them from the PC over to the Mac. And then I put them on an external G drive. And I put them in folders organized by year, and then within those folders organized by month. So now at least I have a better chance of finding a photograph because I have at least all of the digital photos in one place. We'll talk about film in another 10 years when I get that all digitized. So these are a couple of examples of how you can describe what the problem is and what solution you put in place without having to have pages and pages of text. So in case this is something that you're interested in doing or interested in trying, here are some resources. This page is resources, the next page is tools. Here are some resources for you. Mike Rohde's sketchbook notebook. I have no financial interest in any of these companies, or people. Is very good, and I would especially recommend the video edition because there's nothing like seeing someone construct a figure that helps you understand how to do it yourself. And then Eva Lata Lam, I think she gets paid to just go to conferences all the time, and so she sketchnotes conferences, and then she puts them in a book that she publishes annually. And so you can see all kinds of different ways of drawing things. Plus, you can go to conferences like this one, and in 5 minutes, get the content. So it's kind of a nice way of learning. There are also a couple of websites on Flickr. If you look at the group called the Sketchnote Handbook, there are a lot of people who are posting their sketchnotes there, so you can see how they've done it and learn from them. And then there's also a website called the Sketchnote Army, again, if you want to learn from how other folks do things. In terms of tools, my advice to you is a tool is a distraction. Don't worry about the tools. Paper and pencil are perfect. If you decide you want to do it differently because you get frustrated with scanning paper in when you need digital, et cetera, then worry about tools. Or if digital tools work better for your workflow. In this conference, I have been trying out Paper, which is an iPad and Android app by 53, to see how that works in this setting and to see how much fine motor control you have in that. Then there's also a bamboo tablet that Wacom publishes, and they partner with Autodesk as well as Corel and ArtRage in terms of software, if you want to know what kind of software to use. So those are some of the resources, and those are some of the tools in case you're curious. And then in closing, I just want to repeat and reiterate, like Einstein and like the sidewalk, that sketchnotes are a great way to communicate complex ideas quickly. Any questions? Thank you. Thanks.
Talk about your statement there, frame it, don't solve it.
Yeah, that was actually from a senior leadership offsite, and the person who was speaking has a tremendous physicality to all of his metaphors. So play your position, stay in the paint, sports-oriented things. And one of the things he talked about was frame the problem, don't solve it. And what he was trying to do was keep people from diving into the details. He wanted them to frame the problem and then hand it off to somebody else to solve it. So it was a delegation frame. And in this context, frame it, don't solve it is just an example of how you can use your sketchnotes to frame the problem that you're trying to describe or solve with your program. And then you can also frame the solution separately. Thanks for that question.
Next question.
So it seems you kind of approached sketchnotes from two different angles. One is kind of the idea of like taking notes and kind of just really absorbing it, but then also using them as like kind of a way of creating kind of or brainstorming or something like that. Like, am I kind of getting that correct, where you can kind of absorb things as well as create things using that, and it kind of works well both ways?
Yeah, Eric, I think that's really well said. I use them both to absorb things, and I also use them to talk myself through problems and what the problem actually is. And for example, the film example I gave, that was just a mess in my head. And so it took me, 2 or 3 days with 3 or 4 different versions of that picture to try and figure out, what is my problem here? So yeah, I use that to brainstorm quite a bit.
Hey there, thanks for the excellent talk.
Thanks.
One question I have for you is, sketchnotes really help me when I'm trying to absorb something, as you've said, but something I struggle with is findability. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with pure text, it's really easy to find things later on, whether you're relying on built-in search or some other searching tool. How do you address findability in your sketchnotes?
Yeah, I admire you for going back and looking at your notes. When I took text-based notes, I never did that. So, and now that I'm taking sketchnotes, what I'm finding is that I do need to recall the resources. Something I've heard about, and perhaps somebody else can confirm, is that Evernote allows you to put in a drawing and search the text in the drawing, and that way you can find things that way. That's a problem I haven't solved yet. And so right now what I do is I may rip out something from a book and bring it into work because I need it there, or I may make Xerox copies and put them somewhere. So that's a good topic for a future sketch note for me of a problem or a dilemma I need to solve. Thanks for the question.
I wonder if you have any ideas for getting experts to write sketch notes that would be really helpful for us to put in docs if we can't really do it ourselves.
Well, first I would sort of question the can't really do it yourself. And then secondly, if you have somebody who you want to do it, you'd probably have to convince them of the value of it. If I think about asking the people I sketchnote with and for right now to do it, I mean, all I can see in my mind's eye is them going, no! So the easier path for me would be just to figure out what little I could do and to be okay with that. And I think that's part of the beauty of Sketchnotes is that there's a lot of freshness in there because there's a lot of how you draw a square in there. And you'd be surprised at how much that touches the heart of people that look at those drawings. Anything else?
Any more questions? Anybody upstairs that I don't see?
I use 3 strategies. If it's really important, I will do pencil first, and then I will ink later. Sometimes if speed is of the essence and I don't have time for that stuff, I just start with pen. And then on bamboo paper, I can use a stylus and just erase on the fly. So it kind of depends. Personally, if I had a I like pen. I really like the texture. Thanks. Thanks for your attention. I really appreciate it.